Okay, when the Champions League started, not Champions League proper, early in August, who would have thought that Liverpool would be the last British team still in the tournament? Guys, the next question on the debate is simply this. Can Liverpool win the Champions League?
Look, of course they can win the Champions League. They're in a great position against Roma, and if they don't get to the final, I'll be very, very surprised. But I just think in the last few days, their chances of winning the Champions League have slightly diminished, in all honesty, because we were talking about last week about Salah. Does he play this weekend, against Stoke? And he played, and we were talking about the reason he keeps him in the side and he plays him is to keep momentum going. And they lost momentum at the weekend. He missed a couple of chances. All of a sudden, the headlines in the papers aren't Mo Salah is a god, is that Mo Salah misses this and he misses that. And so they've lost a little bit of momentum. The injury to Oxlade-Chamberlain against Roma was the biggest. No, don't worry about the 2 goals that Roma scored late on. That injury to Oxlade-Chamberlain, because he was playing the best football I've seen Oxlade-Chamberlain play of his senior career. And I thought he just brought a different dimension to that Liverpool team. So that's a big problem. And when I was watching that game over the weekend, when Jordan Henderson was going, like, oh, please don't be injured. Alexander-Trent, oh, please don't be injured. So in the last week, their chances have diminished. And we just heard today that the assistant manager is on gardening leave, or Buvac is on gardening leave. So there's things going on at Liverpool which could undermine their chances of winning the Champions League.
Don?
I wouldn't say undermine, and I wouldn't say they've lost momentum.
First question though, can Liverpool win?
They can.
Will they win it?
I think they can. Yeah, they'll get through against Roma. I've got no doubt about that. I think they'll score in Rome, not a problem. And they'll probably, it might be a strange old scoreline. It might be 3-2 to someone, but they'll go through. They've got too much weapons. Watching the game at the weekend, I've been stunned over Jurgen Klopp's team selection over the last fortnight. Constantly playing Van Dijk, his best centre-half, constantly playing Mo Salah, one of the best players in the world at the moment. When you've got eyes and you've got designs on winning a Champions League final, which is looking as though it's going to be Real Madrid if they get past Bayern, I find it a real strange one that Jurgen Klopp's constantly picking those 2 players, because the first 2 players I would ever take out of Liverpool and say, not so much you need a rest, I get where you're coming from, you keep momentum, you keep playing, you keep at the top of your fitness levels, but if anything went wrong, and you talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold and Jordan Henderson picking up knocks. If anything went wrong to Mo Salah, and if anything went wrong to Van Dijk, then all of a sudden you're leaning massively towards Real Madrid.
So we just got to say, if the games in and around Roma, Liverpool were playing against Chelsea, who they've got this week, ironically, or Tottenham or Arsenal or Manchester United, and they're trying to get into that top 4. But when the last 2 teams they faced are the current bottom 2 teams in the Premier League, it does make you think, did he really need to play Van Dijk and Mo Salah?
No, I don't think he did. And it's just me. I've managed. And by the way, the stress, the game sometimes is the best part. The stress is during the week when you're in a situation, you're up to a big game, trying to keep players ticking over, trying to make sure that they're totally prepared for the game. And I can't imagine what it must be like going into the second leg.
Why would Jurgen not have spotted that? Because that is blatantly obvious. That's a schoolboy error to constantly keep playing Van Dijk and Salah.
I think it's a lack of trust in the other players in the squad as well, by the way. You've got to remember that you play Van Dijk because Van Dijk makes a massive difference to that back 4. You play Salah because...
It's strange when he rested Lovren.
I know, but...
It's like if you're going to play someone and play them into form, you'll play Lovren.
But he's still trying to win the game. He still wants to get the top 4.
I get that.
Done and dusted.
I get that.
But he doesn't trust Lovren. He doesn't trust Solanke. We've seen what Solanke's like. Hasn't scored a goal.
You say he doesn't trust him. He doesn't trust him against Stoke, but he's going to trust him against Roma, in Rome. That's the problem. No. It's a little bit contradictory in what he's doing. You're resting the centre-half and you got to tell you what, we'll rest Lovren because we're not sure because Peter Crouch is playing, but then we'll play him in Rome.
Now, I know that he hasn't started with Andrew Robertson at left-back and Trent Alexander-Arnold at right-back in those games against Stoke and West Brom, but is it the importance of Van Dijk in that Liverpool team, not only to the full-backs, but to carry us behind him, to whoever he plays alongside at centre-half, whoever plays in front of him? Liverpool look like a completely different unit when Virgil van Dijk's in the team.
And if something happens within the game, Liverpool can sometimes fall apart. They haven't done it too often with Van Dijk. You see, there's a moment within the game, you've seen Liverpool throughout this season. People say they've had loads of clean sheets, but there's also been moments within the game where Lovren has made a mistake and they fall apart. And that's what Van Dijk brings, a calmness and look, Harris is all of a sudden a much better goalkeeper with Van Dijk in front of him. So I think that's a reason why. I think the other reason why is because there's so many games. As a manager, sometimes, and I think Don would vouch for this, sometimes you use games to keep fit.
Yeah.
You know, you just use training just to tick over as a warm down, as to just to get the players together to discuss what's happened, to plan what's going to go on in the next game. And so I think he's tried to be clever, which is needed to be with a small squad, and use the games as a fitness exercise, saying, look, you're going to come off after an hour. You know, James Milner, you'll come after. You know, Firmino, you're going to come off. And he's done it in a kind of structured way, his substitutions. But it's been fingers crossed time. It's been fingers crossed, Don. If I lean on the side of Jurgen Klopp here and I say what he's ensured over these last few weeks, Roma, or you had West Brom, Roma, Stoke, Roma, is that the intensity levels from his team selections hasn't changed, in that he's been willing to play his big players.
Yeah, I get all that, and you know, when Jurgen Klopp first come into the Premier League, he said, "I'm going to play heavy metal football," and his side have been great to watch, and they're always great when they're on the front foot. Liverpool are not the type of side, under Jurgen especially, that like to just keep the ball for possession's sakes and have 60, 70, 80% of the ball. They like to get the ball forward. Firmino's a player that's just gone under the radar. He's just signed a new 5-year deal this morning. So it's great for Liverpool fans. And then you think of Mane, and you think of Oxlade-Chamberlain, you think of Salah, and you think of Jordan Henderson. Everything right here, right now, is unbelievable for Liverpool. Naby Keita's going to come in as someone who's a real player from Leipzig. And then with one or two additions, you know, you look at the performance of Alisson last week against Liverpool. That could have been 10 without him. You look at the performance of Oblak, the goalkeeper against for Atletico Madrid against Arsenal. If you get this quality of goalkeeper in, and then maybe one more centre-half, even though I'm not sold on another one, because I think Joe Gomez could be brilliant, and you start thinking, well, that back four, if Trent played at right back, and Joe Gomez and Van Dijk and Robertson, that's good enough. And Naby Keita coming into that midfield, they're losing Emre Can to Juve, which is a big loss. And then going forward, you think that 11 and that squad, surely, in my opinion, unless City just go mental and spend another £1 billion that Pep
which they can,
which he did. He joked about this morning. He went, I might bring 2 in and spend £1 billion. I'm thinking, who's costing £500 million these days? But you never know. And I'm thinking Liverpool next season could be a real force.
You heard it first here. Neymar and Messi to Manchester City. Just quickly, Don, the two teams that Liverpool could face, either of them in the final, if they get to the final. Real Madrid take a 2-1 lead back to the Bernabeu. Is there anything in that Bayern Munich side, in that squad, that makes you feel there could be an upset?
No, just because of the amount of injuries they've had. Going forward, you know, Lewandowski was quiet the other week. He's a player that's been touted heavily of going to Real Madrid. Robin got an injury. Frank Ribery got one as well. Mats Hummels at the back got an injury. Boateng's struggling as well. So you look throughout the side, and Bayern are a very, very good side. You know, FC Hollywood are just unbelievable in the way they do things. They'll never sell players, you know, just for the sake of bringing in money. If they don't want to sell Lewandowski to Real Madrid, then they won't go. But I just think they've got too many injuries against the Real Madrid side with Ronaldo and Casemiro, Kroos, Modric, even Bale or Isco. They've got goals in them, Real Madrid. I can only see Real Madrid going to the final. I'm not showing the scoreline, but I can only see them going to the final against Liverpool.
I mean, for style of play, would Liverpool rather play Real Madrid in the final or Bayern Munich?
Real Madrid. I honestly think they would rather play Real Madrid. Real Madrid will give you a chance. The only problem is, you know, we're talking about Mo Salah and the Ballon d'Or. There's that guy called Ronaldo. It just seems when the big games come, we talk about finals, he wants to turn up. He wants to be the main man. He'll be aware of Mo Salah, by the way, and he'll be just doing it. He'll have 10 abs by the time he finishes dealing with
his abs will have abs.
His abs will have abs. But that's the problem. He will turn up. Those players, you talk about, yeah, they have weaknesses at the back, but one thing they have, and talk about experience, they have experience of knowing how to win in the big games. And that's why I think Real Madrid will get to the final. I really do hope, in terms of British football, in terms of the Premier League, that Liverpool get to the final and get a result. But they'll be underdogs. They'll be underdogs.
Real Madrid are going for 3 Champions Leagues on the spin. Yeah. It's a very hard one, and it's where you need a sort of tactics board, and you look at it and you think, right, how can Liverpool beat Real Madrid if that's going to be the final, or Bayern? And you think, well, Bayern's strong players are David Alaba at left back and Joshua Kimmich at right back. They're strong players, great players going forward, but defensively these two kids are sound. And you look at Real Madrid and you think, Marcelo, going forward, unbelievable.
Amazing.
Completely off the cuff. As a defender, hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. Can't defend to save his life. No. Watch him, Lee. Watch him. Honestly, for the goal that they conceded the other week, he was tying his laces in the corner flag. 4 or 5 Real Madrid players actually had to run past him because he's like a Cafu. He's a player that just wants to go forward and express himself, and technique-wise, he's frightening. But if you think of Mo Salah, 1v1, there's only one winner.
Yeah.
And you think of Mane up against Carvajal, which would be the better battle, because they're both of them are absolute rockets, by the way. They're two of them are athletes. And then where Liverpool might fall short, as you look at that three-man midfield, and playing against Modric, Casemiro and Kroos, there might not be a better three in world football.
No, there isn't.
So the likes of Milner, Henderson, and it was Oxlade-Chamberlain have now got a job on to try and match those three. So it makes for a great game. But as you're saying, it wouldn't surprise you if Real Madrid beat Liverpool 1-0 and Ronaldo scored the winner. Exactly. He's that type of player.
Let's just look at how important this Champions League run is for Liverpool, the bigger picture. It's not just a potential final. It's the kind of players moving forward for Project Klopp or Project Liverpool that they can start attracting the world's best. And when you look at the Premier League, you say Manchester City and Manchester United, Liverpool now put themselves as a real reckoning, a real option alongside those greats.
Well, City now are rewriting their history, aren't they? Liverpool have got it in abundance. They've got one of the best histories alongside Man United in world football. So if Liverpool go to 6 Champions Leagues, and then in the summer you can use that and you go, we are going places. We won the Champions League last year. We're trying to defend the title. We're going to go close to Man City. And as you said, you get Alisson or Oblak in, and you break a world record fee for a goalkeeper because they've done it with Van Dijk. And you go, right, Liverpool right now want to be at the top table because they're spending 70 on Van Dijk. If they go another 70 on a goalkeeper and Naby Keita's coming through the door, then all of a sudden you go, is there much left for Jurgen Klopp to try and achieve in terms of bringing players in? Because they're nearly there. Obviously, getting to titles and trophies is the main thing, but standard of players, my word, if he gets those calibre players in, they're going places.
You're absolutely right, Don, in terms of getting those calibre players in. But one thing I would disagree with you on, earlier you said that Liverpool, what a team, what a squad. I would say, what a team. I think their team is as good as Man City's, but I think their squad isn't as good as Man United's. It isn't as good as Chelsea's. And it isn't as good as Tottenham's.
Is that a money thing? Is that a time thing?
Well, I think what Klopp is waiting for the right players. It's interesting waiting for Van Dijk just to spend the money on
and
Van
vindicated
Dijk.
by his performances.
Naby Keita, obviously coming through. Don said absolutely wonderful player. They need a goalkeeper. They need another centre half. I feel they need another midfield player, and I think they need another striker. That's 4 players.
All right.
And you're talking about, I think they need to spend 300 million on 4 players.
Take some of the players though on the fringes. Grujic is a real player who's on loan to Cardiff. You got Nathaniel
So
Klein.
with Emre Can now going to Juventus, that's left the door open for Marco.
But there'll be players they need to get rid of. They need to get Sturridge out. They need to get Solanke out. They need to get. I think maybe
Solanke's harsh. He's just had his first season.
Solanke's a young player, but maybe he needs to go out and play. I'm not saying they write him off, but he needs to go out and play. I think Lovren is a liability. I'm not sure Karius will be happy being number 2 on the bench now. He might have to move on. So there'll be some, not deadwood, but there'll be some players they need to move out and just replace with better quality for their squad to be at the level it needs to be to challenge for the Premier League.
Leroy's just said the odd 300 million. I'm not sure if you've got that under the sofa.
Not on me, no.
300 million for 4 players, averaging 75 million pounds a player. What order? Right. So if Liverpool are going to buy a striker, a central midfielder, a goalkeeper, and a centre half, what order? Goalkeeper first for you.
100% a goalkeeper. Even though Karius has got the potential, and don't forget the job that David De Gea went in when he went into Man United. And I think Fergie was quoted saying he's like a boy at the minute, he'll grow into a man, and he's certainly done that. He's probably the best goalkeeper in the world. But if I look at Liverpool, and we were talking about Brendan Rodgers and Jurgen Klopp, their managerial styles, it's all about scoring over 100 goals.
Yeah,
it's how many goals are you going to concede? And Arsenal the other night against Atletico Madrid could have won the game 5 or 6-1, and they didn't. They walked away with a 1-1 draw. That's the difference when goalkeepers are pulling off big saves. And in the very big games, you look at the Liverpool-Man United game when De Gea was pulling off saves left, right and centre. And these guys at the back, where you've got a world-class centre-half in Van Dijk, and whoever partners him alongside him, might be Gomez, and might go out and buy another one. Koulibaly at Napoli's a real brilliant centre-half that could go right to the very top. And I would imagine the top 3 at the moment, you've got to leave them alone. If you're being picky and you're playing fantasy football, you could try and get Cavani out of PSG and go, right, you're the 9. Firmino's clever enough to play as a 10, Coutinho like. Then all of a sudden you're building a squad and that's where the squad...
Will Cavani give you what Firmino does? Because I think he's quite unique.
Cavani's a workaholic, though. Yeah. But and listen, these are fantasy numbers, but I'm thinking if you're asking me...
Well, Leroy's give you 300 million to spend.
Well, spend it on Oblak. Spend 300 on Oblak.
All I'll say, you're absolutely right about Oblak, because you look at Man City, I know they talk about Walker, but the man who's transformed Man City and he's made them confident in the way is Ederson. Ederson has transformed the way that Man City plays.
Isn't that
Man
for
City
the way
still
he plays, not him being a shot stopper?
No,
though?
because you get to the one-on-one with him, and by the way, you think, he's going to save it. By the way, sometimes doesn't even get to a one-on-one because his positional play, he's at 15 yards outside the box playing as a sweeper, so he never gets to that situation.
There's probably not a lot of difference in terms of football and ability from Edison to Bravo. You know, there might be a little bit of a percentage. But when you watched Man City last season, every time someone went through on goal, you thought, goal.
Yeah.
Now, centre forwards, midfield players, wide players are going one-on-one with Edison, you're thinking, keeper will save this. That's the difference.
That's what Liverpool need to do.
So, guys, we've just debated the fortunes of Liverpool. Liverpool have been given £300 million to spend by Leroy, and they're going to spend it all on a goalkeeper, says Dom.